Welcome back to Kentucky Sports Television. We're happy now to be joined via Skype by Rob Dauster from NBC Sports. Rob, thank you for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me on, guys.
Kentucky, of course, looked pretty bad in their game against Arkansas Saturday. They lost 73-60. They looked close to turning a corner and looked like they maybe could build some momentum as they head into the postseason. Coming out of that game, what's your opinion of this UK team? How good are they, or how bad are they right now?
Well, I don't think we really should be surprised that they lost at Arkansas. Nobody wins in Bud Walton Arena, and Arkansas plays the style. They're very pressuring. They get up in you. That crowd is always wild, and we know that Kentucky's issues this year are at the point. They have turnovers. They don't have all that much leadership. So I think it was kind of far-fetched to think that Kentucky was going to go in there and knock off Arkansas. And personally, I don't think this changes the outlook of Kentucky's season. I still think that I think going into that game, they needed to win 2 of their last 3. They needed to beat Florida, and they need to win a game or 2 in the SEC tournament to get a bid. And I don't think any of that changes with this loss. I still think they're pretty much in the same position where they have to, beat Georgia, beat Florida, and win a game or 2, and they'll be in.
How, without Nerlens Noel, how good do you think that, I mean, wins and losses aside, but when you look at this team, are they a top 50 team, a top 40 team? Where would you place them, kind of what we've seen without Nerlens at this point?
I think probably right around the top 35 to the top 40 is pretty accurate. I think Willie Cauley-Stein has played really well, actually, with the increase in minutes. He's been rebounding, he's been blocking shots, and whether or not Nerlens is on the floor, Cauley-Stein is still a really long, really athletic guy that can block shots and be a guy defensively. It's nice to see Archie Goodwin and Alex play a little bit better. And he didn't play his best game on Saturday, but I still think that Ryan Harrow has been better over the last couple of games. If you kind of take away what happened at Tennessee, I think he's played better. So they're a good team. They're talented. It's going to come down to whether or not they play a team that can kind of take them out of what they want to do offensively.
Harrow, he was good at home for those 3 games after playing 2 terrible games on the road. Is he the key to the team? When you look at this team and say, if they're going to get going and they're going to be anything close to what we thought they were in the preseason, is Harrow the guy you think that carries the most weight on the team?
Yeah, because they have a lot of athletes and they have a lot of guys with a bunch of raw talent that really aren't, they're basically athletes at this point. They're not yet basketball players, if that makes sense. So they don't really have a guy that can kind of get those kids in like an easy spot and get them easy baskets and get them dunks. And when Harrow was doing that, that's when they're at their most effective.
Well, if you're talking to Kentucky fans, you say you're realistic expectations for the next 2 games and the SEC tournament. What do you think how it finishes out for the Cats over the course of these last 2 regular season games and then the SEC tournament?
Well, going into Georgia is not going to be easy. As Tennessee found that out the hard way as they went in there and they lost on Saturday. So, I think they got to take it one game at a time. I mean, go into Georgia, get a win, and then worry about Florida. I think that's the biggest thing because if you look past Georgia, they'll get you. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, he's really, really good. So you can't look past the Bulldogs.
When you look at the SEC as a whole, there was a point in time earlier in the season where it was Florida and Missouri and maybe Ole Miss, and the Ole Miss has faded. Tennessee's crept up. When you look at the SEC, how bad or good is the conference at this point? And how many teams do you think ultimately get into the tournament from the SEC?
Well, it's definitely not good. I'll say that much. Florida's really good. I think Florida is, they're one of those teams, top 8, top 9 that can win a national title. But beyond that, there's just a lot of question marks. Even with a team like Missouri, they haven't really proven themselves in close games on the stretch. I don't think I would trust Phil Pressey in a late game situation. He hasn't shown to be a very good decision maker. And I don't think that Ole Miss can get a bid. You can't lose to South Carolina and Mississippi State and be a tournament team. When you haven't beaten anybody that's all that good, I don't think that you can lose to those 2 teams and still be considered an at-large team. So I think the only way that they get 3 teams in is if Kentucky beats Florida, Tennessee wins out and wins the last couple of games, or someone fluky wins the automatic bid.
So heading into the tournament, there's a lot of uncertainty, I guess, all across college basketball. Can you give us 4 teams that you're picking right now? You feel good about on this day, it may change tomorrow, but on this day, 4 teams you think are favorites to make the Final Four?
Favorites to make the 4 teams?
Your favorites, the 4 teams you like to make the Final Four.
Well, I think Indiana at this point is probably still the best team in the country. I wasn't thrown off of them that much in the loss to Minnesota. I really like Gonzaga. I think that they're going to surprise some people. I wouldn't mind seeing them win. they're a likable team with a likable coach, and I wouldn't mind seeing them win a couple games. After that, yeah, I think that Michigan State still has a run in them because I'm never, ever, ever going to bet against Tom Izzo. And then I think Florida will make it because now that they're healthy, their defense is just so impressive, and I think that'll get them past, some of their issues with Kenny Boynton and some of their shot selection problems.
Is Gonzaga that good? I mean, for Kentucky fans, I think there's probably a natural, following Kentucky is kind of the top of the sport. You see these mid-major type of schools, and Gonzaga's had tremendous success for a long time. Are they the number one right now? Are they that good that they could make it a big-time run in the tournament that people might say, you know what, we didn't give them credit because they're Gonzaga?
I think they can. People that haven't seen Kelly Olynyk play are going to be very, very surprised when they do get a chance to watch him because he's really good. He's the real deal. He's got another big guy alongside him named Elias Harris, and they got some big guys coming off the bench as well. They got as much size as anybody in the country. And when you throw in their point guard, Kevin Pangos, who seemingly doesn't miss from three, they got some athletes on the perimeter. They're good. They're legit. They've started defending much better. People that are thinking back to those teams that haven't made the Sweet 16 and been kind of overrated are going to be surprised if they haven't seen Gonzaga play this year.
Have you know Kelly Olynyk looks like Mitch from Dazed and Confused, the little kid with the long hair? If you put them side by side, they're identical. You guys can use that for the blog. You can have that. Before we let you go, who are maybe a couple sleeper teams or flying under the radar for fans to keep an eye on as we get ready to head to the tournament?
I don't know if they're flying under the radar anymore after what they did to Butler on Saturday, but VCU is going to be a team that's very, very difficult to play just because they're so hard to prepare for. Butler is a pretty good basketball team, and they just got absolutely demolished by VCU just because you don't have someone that's confident with the ball and you don't have a couple of really strong ball handlers in your backcourt, you're going to get trucked by VCU because of how strong that press is. It's reminiscent of what Arkansas was back in the mid-'90s when they had Nolan Richardson.
All right, Rob Dauster from NBC Sports College Basketball Talk. Thank you very much for joining us. Appreciate the time.
Hey, thanks for having me on.